Imagine for a second that the deafening roar of the water, that sound that rumbles in your ears and makes the ground tremble beneath your feet, simply stops. Absolute silence takes over the abyss. It seems impossible, right? Well, this isn't fiction. It actually happened. And to discover how it was possible, and to understand the secret power that sculpted one of the most impressive wonders on the planet, stick with us. Today, you're going to discover the untold story of how Niagara Falls was formed, a journey of millions of years that ends with a revelation that will make you see them with new eyes. To understand its origin, we have to turn back Earth's clock, not hundreds, but hundreds of millions of years. Visualize a landscape submerged under ancient seas, teeming with primitive life. On the bottom of those seas, during the Silurian period, around 400 million years ago, layer upon layer of sediment accumulated. Over time, pressure turned that sediment into rock. But not just any rock. First, a base of soft shale and weak layers formed, relatively soft and vulnerable materials. On top of them, a layer of dolomite was deposited, an incredibly hard and resistant rock, like a stone shield. Now, fast forward to the last great ice age, about 18,000 years ago. This is where the story becomes epic. Imagine an ice sheet over 2 kilometers thick, like stacking 1,000 skyscrapers on top of each other, covering the entire territory. This gigantic glacier, like a bulldozer, excavated and shaped what we now know as the Great Lakes. But around 12,500 years ago, the climate changed. The enormous glacier began to retreat, and in doing so, it released a volume of water so colossal it's hard to conceive. This meltwater, this uncontrollable torrent, desperately sought an outlet to the Atlantic Ocean. And then, the definitive encounter happened. This mass of water, which we now know as the Niagara River, met the Great Niagara Escarpment, a natural cliff. And what did it find at this precipice? The perfect rock structure to create an unparalleled spectacle. The water fell onto the weak shale, which began to erode rapidly. Losing its support, the hard cap of dolomite above fractured and broke off in huge blocks, falling into the void. This process, repeating over and over, is the geological dance that gives life to the falls. The first step of this primordial cascade wasn't where you see it today. It was located much further north, near what is now Lewiston, New York, and Queenston, Ontario. From there, over millennia, the powerful torrent has been gnawing at the rock, retreating southward toward the heart of the continent, leaving behind a deep and winding gorge. In fact, the Niagara River is so unusual that it doesn't start small and grow like others. It begins gigantic, connecting 2 great lakes, and narrows into a canyon it has carved for itself. But around 5,500 years ago, nature decided to put an accelerator on this story. The glacial meltwater from distant ice sheets found its way south again, and the flow of the Niagara River increased dramatically, regaining its original fury. It was then that the falls reached a critical point, an ancient river valley, buried and sealed by the glacier during the Ice Age. Colliding with this buried valley, filled with soft sediments, the erosion became explosive. In a matter of weeks, perhaps days, the falls excavated that fill, creating a 90-degree turn in the river and forming the enormous whirlpool we know today as the Whirlpool, a violent and beautiful testament to a catastrophic encounter. Think of it this way. The water you see falling today is, for the most part, fossil water. It's the same water that was released from the ice over 10,000 years ago. Less than 1% is renewed annually by rainfall. The rest is a direct legacy of the Ice Age. Every drop that plunges into the abyss has a millennia-long story behind it. And here we arrive at the point that invites debate. Over the last few centuries, humans have drastically intervened in this natural process. We've built enormous tunnels and diverted more than half of the river's flow to generate hydroelectric power before it even reaches the brink of the falls. On summer nights, the flow is reduced even further. We have largely frozen the erosion. The rate of retreat, which was once over a meter per year, has been reduced to centimeters. In fact, in 1969, the U.S. Army completely diverted the river on the American side to study the bedrock and remove fallen blocks, fearing that erosion might turn the falls into rapids. This is the great question that beats in the heart of the Niagara Gorge. Are we preserving a natural spectacle, or are we freezing a living process? Should we allow nature to take its course, even if that means that in a few thousand years, the falls will cease to exist as we know them? Or, on the contrary, is it our ethical responsibility, now that we have the power, to maintain this monument for future generations, even at the cost of its natural evolution? It's a fascinating dilemma. Are we simply spectators, or have we become the gardeners of the planet? The story of Niagara Falls is not just that of a beautiful geographical accident. It's the chronicle of a living planet where ice, water, and rock have sculpted a constantly moving masterpiece. It's the story of how a giant, sleeping under the ice, awoke with a fury capable of carving canyons. And now, it's also the story of our own influence, of how we've put our shoulder to the wheel to slow that giant down. Now we want to know your opinion. This is the heart of the matter. After learning about this dilemma, do you think we should let Niagara Falls continue its natural erosion process, even if it means its disappearance in the future? Or should we continue to intervene to preserve it forever as a frozen monument in time? We'll read you in the comments. If this story has made you feel the greatness of our planet, give us a like so more people can discover the secrets the Earth hides. And if you want to keep traveling with us through time and nature, subscribe and hit the bell. See you on the next journey.